Hello, fellow movie crusaders, and welcome to a special review. My name's Sean Waskrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels, and today we're going to be doing a non-spoiler and spoiler review for the Hulu film No One Will Save You. Now, normally I just do a non-spoiler review and kind of just drop it from here, but this is a movie that Brian and I caught a trailer of about 2 weeks ago.
I didn't even know it existed until I was researching for our fall preview. And I'm like, what is this sci-fi movie with Caitlin Dever in it? And then we're like, I don't know anything about it. And then, yeah, it was like a week later or something, they dropped the trailer for it.
And this is something that we were like, okay, this looks great. Thus, we both watched it, and Brian was like, I have a lot of thoughts. And I was like, all right, let's do a joint review. We haven't done one since early in the summer. So by all means, now we're going to be doing the non-spoiler part of it first. And then once we've explained everything that we could explain without going into spoilers, then we'll jump into the spoiler chat and go from there. But yeah, the general consensus or the general plot, because there's not really a whole lot of plot to this. Like the trailers, for the most part, kind of explain what it is to a point. Is we're following this woman played by Caitlin Dever.
Bryn.
I think it's Bryn, right? Yeah, Bryn. And from what we can tell, at least from the first 3 minutes of the movie, that she lives in a very small town, and she's kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Recluse.
Kind
of an outcast.
Yeah, she's an outcast because like we see her, she looks very bubbly and happy, and she looks like she's trying.
Well, she's trying to be. She's in the mirror, like trying to.
Exactly, like like is she preparing for something? We don't know. But then like she drives up to this one dude, very nicely waves, and he kind of just looks at her disgusted and walks off, and then she just kind of goes home, and then night happens, and the shit hits the fan. And that is the best way we could describe it. If you guys have not seen the trailer for this, we're not going to really explain any more because this movie definitely needs to be seen. And we're gonna tiptoe around this as best we can without giving away stuff for the non-spoiler part of this. But you and I, we've been fans of Caitlin Dever for a while now. I've known her since before Booksmart. Did you know her before Booksmart, or was Booksmart kind of your introduction to Caitlin Dever?
That was the first time I saw her and took notice of her. I may have seen things she was in before that, but it was in small roles, so I probably didn't even pay attention. But that's the first place I really saw her.
Yeah, I knew her from Tim Allen's comedy Last Man Standing. While I hate that show, because it was basically Tim Allen on a soapbox, she was I would call it the Jonathan Taylor Thomas of the show. She was kind of the cool tomboy youngest, but she had some of the greatest lines. She was the most likable character on the show. So when she left that or progressed from that to movies and Booksmart, where everyone mostly knows her from, I was so happy to see her flourish. And then we got to see her, was it last year in Rosaline?
Yes, last year.
Yeah, which
if you didn't see it then, tough shit, because Hulu pulled it. So
yeah, which I think you and I were hoping for. We're hoping and expecting more out of that than what we actually got, but we still enjoyed it.
Still enjoyed it, though,
yeah. But this was the first time we ever seen her actually do horror, and I will say this without going deep into actual plot details for spoiler reasons. I think acting wise, Dever knocks this movie out of the park. I think she acts the shit out of this, because here's something, spoiler, non-spoiler, but something you probably would want to know ahead of time. There is, not counting score and music, there's 5 words of dialogue in this entire film. And you only get those 5 words of dialogue after like an hour and 10 minutes. And then, and out of those 5 words, 2 of them are repeat words of prior words. So like that's it in terms of dialogue of the film. So it really does rely on Caitlin being able to sell this movie off her physical acting and her facial expressions, and I think she knocked it out of the park. What was your thoughts on that?
No, I loved her in this, and it's one of those things where it's like, I've always liked her in this, but I've liked her in the movies I've seen her in, but I had not seen her do horror, or anything like even kind of action oriented. I mean, this is an action movie, but I mean those sequences. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I don't know if this is her kind of thing, but I'm willing to check it out because it's her. But yeah, I mean, she completely sells it. I mean, and she's in every single scene in the movie. The whole movie is basically told from her perspective. So it's like there's not scenes take place elsewhere that she's not in. She's there for the entire movie, and she sells it every single second. Whether it be early in the movie when you're kind of see her just struggle with trying to interact with people, or later in the movie, once things start happening, where she has to show fear, where she has to show, you know, whatever other emotions, where she has to show conviction to try and fight back, those kind of things. And she works all of it.
And I will say this, and I think you're in agreement with me on me. The first 15 minutes of this movie are some of the best 15 minutes this year.
Yeah, anytime I turn on a streaming movie, especially, it's like, okay, this is either going to be good or it could very well just completely suck. And so it's the kind of thing where it's like, should I do something else while I watch this? Like, no, I'm going to actually watch this movie. And I turn on, I'm like, oh, it's, you know, it's going to be a spooky movie. I'm going to turn off all the lights and stuff. I'm going to turn up the sound. It's going to be fun. Watch this movie, and literally the first sounds of the movie, the music and the sounds as they kind of pan over that opening shot over the house, it was just already like, oh, this is a wonderful creepy vibe they're making. And then the title card comes up and it's just super spooky, which it reminded me of the Evil Dead, I'm sorry, Evil Dead Rise, where that title card is just so cool when it comes up out of the water. It just sets the tone for the whole movie. And then those first 15 minutes, where it's I mean, there's the opening is
I would say the first 5 minutes is you just kind of watching her, like you said, it looks like she's trying to prepare.
They're kind of trying to introduce you to who she is, even though there's no speaking. They're telling you who she is. They're telling you what she does, you know, the kind of life she lives in this house, and how she's, you know, a recluse and all these things. But then I know what you're talking about is like that next 15 minutes or so of like the initial home invasion. And it's just like, it is so well done. It is creepy. It has a great tense, you know, feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't let up. Like those first 10 minutes, like I'm watching it, I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I'm watching it, I'm gonna pay attention, but how long is it gonna take for me to get it? Is it gonna be like your normal? Because I would say this is more like sci-fi horror thriller than straight up horror. Because usually, like I said, you know, the normal horror template is nothing really happens until the 40-minute mark. That's when shit starts to hit the fan. And then from the 40 to 55-minute mark, usually the sweet spot for horror films.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this is not necessarily a horror film. It just has horror aesthetics and a sci-fi thriller kind of, you know, landscape. This movie does not slow down. You get that little 5-minute intro of Bryn and who she is. And you kind of like, all right, something's off. We don't know. Will we find out? Yes or no? And then nightfall hits. And then that next 10 to 15 minutes, you're just like,
it's so well done too.
You're on the edge of your seat. The
funny thing is, when I'm watching this, what I'm thinking is, this is the movie that Signs wanted to be.
You know what? And I love Signs. We talked about Signs here on Weekly Crusaders a couple months back. I love Signs. Brian, not so much. But even as I was watching this, I was even thinking, this is, if Signs was like this, Signs would have been M. Night's, like, you know, opus. Like it would have blown away Sixth Sense. It would have blown away even with how this movie ends. That's such an M. Night kind of ending to it too, which we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But this, like I said, it has this, you know, like almost like a Clockwork Orange thing where it like tapes your eyes. Like, you cannot take your eyes off this first 15 minutes. And yes, a lot, and because I'm watching, I'm like, okay, well, this first 10, 15 minutes, this is basically the trailer, because it's like we saw this in the trailer. Mm-hmm. No, there's more. There is more, and it is so well done. And the great thing about it is like it lets up a little bit after that, because obviously you have the next day, but it just keeps hitting you and hitting you and hitting you. And Caitlin Dever's physical acting in this, she gets put through the fucking ringer in this movie. Like, she gets, like, stunt double or not, Dever gets thrown around like a toy in this movie. And she, like I said, she acts her ass off. Now, if there is a downfall or a negative to this movie, is probably the last act, or at least the last 15 minutes. And it's not necessarily bad. It's just more like an M. Night Shyamalan film. You're just going, huh?
It's a choice.
Yeah.
I think I described it as like, I loved this movie for 95% of it. And then that last, like, not even like the last act for me it was like the last 5 minutes. I just described it as a head scratcher. Because it's like, I don't even really necessarily dislike it, but I'm just like, it's like kind of like, I don't really understand it. And even once I heard the explanation, I'm like, okay, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm like, it doesn't make me not love the rest of the movie anymore. I still love the rest of the movie just as much. It didn't like kill the movie for me, but it's one of those things where it's
Mhm.
like it just kept it from completely sticking the landing, you know?
Yeah, it's almost one of those things where it's like if someone were to ask, like, hence why you guys are watching it, hey, how good is it? Like, it's great. Don't let the ending ruin it for you. Because it's not even that the ending's bad. It's very much the best way I can describe it without going into it until we go into a spoiler thing. It's very much like a Twilight Zone
Or
esque
very much as Twilight Zone, yeah.
kind of ending, or the TV show from in the '90s that I always watched was Outer Limits, where it's like it has a very unique kind of ending. It's gonna work for some. It's not gonna work for most because it's just so weird, I guess would be the right word to it, because you're still it just ends and you're left there, like I said, head scratching, going, well, so clarification? Can I get some
Yeah, like,
clarification?
so what was the whole goal here then? I don't
Yeah, exactly.
know.
Because there's a lot of it where it's like, this is the ending is where you're like, can I get some dialogue now, please? Can we actually start talking? Because I need kind of
Though
I can't
I will say though, the whole no dialogue thing is like the movie starts off and it's just her herself by herself at home. So I'm like, don't expect any dialogue. I mean, you hear the singing on the record you listen to that, but that
yeah.
doesn't count. Um, but then like the whole home invasion happens, and there's obviously it's just her, and there's still no talking at all. And I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting. You know, this is something they did here. I'm like, you know, I wonder how long they keep this up. And it got to be, you know, about the halfway point, and I'm like, are they gonna do the whole movie?
It was one of those things where it wasn't until
It was an
like an
hour and 9
hour
minutes in,
in,
and they
I
said something.
realized, I'm like, there has not been a single word of dialogue in this entire
Yeah,
film.
and
And
I'm
then
glad I didn't know that going in. I mean, now it's kind of everybody's talking about it, but I'm
yeah.
so happy because it was like another thing to be like, "Well, what's going on? What's going on?" Yeah.
And then when it finally did happen, I literally went and like checked this. I was like, 1 hour, 9 minutes. And then I was like, okay, she said 5 words. And then I was like, she might not say anything else. Like, I don't really see her because she's by herself for most of this. I was like, I
And the
really don't.
context of it too, I was like, "I bet this might be the only thing that she's gonna say." Yeah.
Well, because it's one of those things where you can have a movie like this, which, like I said, they do it the right way, where she's alone. So unless she's doing internal dialogue, she's basically, you don't want a situation like Deadpool, where Deadpool's basically going, "Oh shit," and "Oh fuck," and and all this, because it lessens the impact of what's happening. It is that silence because she has to be quiet for a lot of this, and
Mhm.
it's that extra silence and hearing it
Oh,
and
the
all that
sound
kind of
design in
stuff.
this
Oh,
was beautiful.
the sound design of this
If
movie
you
is
got a good
fantastic.
surround system or some good headphones, oh, it's beautiful.
Exactly. And it's her not going, ah, and shit, and all, like you would normally get in a horror film that makes this work so effectively. It's just how it ended. A very M. Night-esque kind of ending that just makes you go, this movie was really, really good. It could have been fantastic, but that the way it ends just kind of left a meh taste. It, like I said, it doesn't take away from the last 95% that I got to watch, but it is one of those where it's like I kind of want to watch it to this point and then just stop. you know but for me personally, like I said, in terms of Hulu movies, which I think you and I were discussing this a couple weeks back, where it's like straight to Hulu movies have a better reaction, at least for you and I, than it does like straight to Netflix or straight to Apple or stuff like that. Because I don't know, there's a lot of good straight to Hulu movies that you and I have actually quite, like Prey and Palm Springs and some others that I can't think of off the
I
top of my
revisited The Princess. I didn't hate it, just saying.
head. Yeah, and I didn't get to rewatch it
Which
like you.
again, can't watch it.
Yeah. But this is definitely one of those movies that's like, in terms of recommendation, yes, like Brian said, this is a movie. If you've got surround sound or headphones and watch this in the dark and not be on your cell phone, not be on your laptop or tablet or anything like that, just live in this world for, what was it, like 90 minutes tops for this movie. This movie is going to just lock you in and leave you in this state of like fear for this character of Bryn. And it's a strong recommendation from both of us. For me, because the ending didn't hit and it kind of just left me questioning a lot of things. For me, my score, I'm giving it a 78%. I liked so much of it. Just wish it would have stuck the landing a little bit better. Your score for that, Brian?
I gave it I just do the letterbox score. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. It's a high 4 though still. I mean, it was trending 4.5, potential for 5 early on, honestly. At the end, it dragged it down, but it's still 4 stars, which is a very good score for me.
Yeah, had it hit the ending, I agree. It would have been like a 4.5 to a 5 star review for me. It would have jumped right into my top 10 for the year, but that ending really did kind of drop it down a few pegs. But definitely a strong recommendation from Brian and myself. Definitely something you guys should check out. It's on Hulu now. Apparently, it did get released in theaters in New York and
It just got
LA.
like a New York, LA release, yeah.
Yeah, if you are in New York or LA and you're watching this,
Oh, hell yeah.
oh hell yeah, go see it in a theater, because I would love to have seen this in a theater, because that's one thing, and that's what you and I always say about with these movies. It's like, this movie was so good. Why didn't they release this in theaters? It could have made money. And this is a movie that I do think, especially with this weak September, they could have rode this into October. This could have made money. But yeah, this is a strong recommendation. Definitely check this out on Hulu. This is the end of the non-spoiler review.
I just want to add one more thing. Just one more thing for the non-spoiler.
Go ahead.
This is directed by Brian Duffield, who is not a name anybody knows. The only other thing he directed was a movie that came out in the pandemic called Spontaneous, which was a weird, I don't know, rom-com-y thing. It's starring Catherine Langford and Charlie Plummer, where kids were just spontaneously exploding. Actually, I really enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 stars, I think, on my review.
I never saw it.
But what caught my attention, though, is that he is also the writer of Spontaneous, Love and Monsters, The Babysitter,
I love,
and Underwater, which I think is a great tense horror film. So he's got some good stuff underneath him as a writer too.
So this guy could be someone to look out for here in the near future, because he is building a good resume under him. But yeah, so this is the end of our non-spoiler review. We're now going into our spoilers. So for anyone who has not seen this movie, stop now, come back after you've seen it, and listen to our spoiler thoughts. If you guys have already watched it, then obviously stick around, because we're going into it right now. One thing that I think this is what your Signs dig is, because the one thing you hated about Signs was how the aliens looked. I didn't hate how the aliens looked, because it was also 2002, 2003. It's like, it is what it is. The aliens looked fantastic in this movie. They looked so good.
I was worried, because you see the first aliens, you're like, okay, they're going with the stereotypical alien. I mean, it's super well done, but it's that stereotypical alien look to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, as it goes, you see, like, there's like the little one that attacks her, and then there's the big giant leg ones, and there's the huge giant one that comes out, and it's like they had all the different levels of it, which could have looked super goofy. But I don't know if it's just because of the way they did it, the way they animated it, or what. And again, the sound design helps so much, especially in those early scenes, that it completely works.
I was so confused, because I thought, like, because the movie, you're in her perception, you're not getting any answers about what's going on.
Right.
So, like, because we know there's this thing that crawled out of the alien, and we know that it's in everyone's throat. So I thought when the little alien showed up, that was that one that had just grown in that day and was just like, motherfucker, you killed my mom. And I was like, nah, But then you're like, oh no, that's just another version of the fucking alien. Like, okay, cool. And then you get like what I call the daddy long legs,
the spider,
which is also like almost kind of like the what do you call the signal people in the airport that are like,
oh, the marshalers? Yeah.
Yes, because that's what it's doing. Like, so much of the time, just doing.
Oh, they're signaling up to the
It's
ship,
like it's signaling to like the like, go over here, kind of thing. But but visually, it's terrifying. But let's talk about that opening 15 minutes, because first off, Caitlin Deaver looks beautiful in the kind of outfits she was wearing, like very, very, like, southern, like, small town girl. I'm like, because she always plays like kind of a tomboyish kind of character. She looked fantastic in this. The way they did her hair, her makeup, she looked great in this movie. But yeah, when we do go to the actual night itself, like you said, sound design wise, is fantastic. And then we see the feet, which look like hands. Like
that go up on, yeah.
And he's like, and it's like that's the first moment where I was like, because the whole time I'm like, all right, this is the trailer. Like, I've seen all this. Like, is the whole trailer going to be this beginning part? And then you get to see the hands, and I was like, oh, okay. And then, because like in the way the trailer, she gets hit by the door, and like you think she wakes up the next day, but like you're watching this, and you're like, there's no way that's the end of that scene, because the alien clearly sees her. like is the alien just gonna leave her alone? And then you get that whole moment where she's crawling away and she's going to her, I don't want to call them doll houses, like holiday houses.
Well, she's like basically trying to make a model of essentially the idyllic town, like the town that, it's
Yeah.
almost like in Beetlejuice where they're making a
Yes,
model of the
exactly.
town she lives in. And it's
Yeah.
because she can't live in that town. So it's like she's making her little idyllic village there,
Yeah, she so
which of course
badly just
gets
wants
called
to
back at the
be
end. But yeah.
accepted and a part of this
Mhm.
town that's for, I mean, and that's the other thing. We'll touch on the actual what
Yeah, we'll get to
reasoning. We'll touch on that. But yeah, you get this whole point, and she like I said, she's just getting thrown around like a doll through all this whole thing. But like even when she does like get grabbed and spun around, even I was like, damn, when she went right
Well,
there
she
because
gets spun around and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then you see what she stabbed. I'm like, oh shit.
yeah, like I was like, oh damn, good for you, good for you. And then of course, the whole time you're like, call the cops, But then of course, the whole power is shot and out and everything like
Mhm.
that. And because at that point we still don't get like we see that guy at the beginning, we're thinking like, oh, maybe ex-boyfriend or something. Like there's a reason why he's disgusted at her. Then we get into the town, we're like, why is everyone fucking looking at her like that?
Yeah,
And
because at that point we know that she's kind of, on her own out there because they reference that, her mom has died, things like that.
And you see
Um,
her writing to a mod,
yep,
and
we
we're
don't know
thinking
anything
like
about
that's
Maud.
maybe that's her mom or
But it's
someone.
like honestly, like when she was practicing waving and then when she waved to the guy, I thought it was just like, oh, there's this guy that she likes, and she was like getting herself ready to try and wave to him,
And
but
she's
then she ignored
practicing
her.
to dance and all this kind of stuff.
But
It's
yeah,
like,
she
oh
gets to town and everyone's kind of giving her looks and cold shoulders and stuff, and you're like, and that's when you realize something more is going on here.
yeah. And then she goes into the police station, and you get this scene with the police chief and his wife, and she just straight up spits in her face. I was like what the fuck? Like, why is it the police chief doing it? I was like, and you find like, oh, they're married, first off. But then it was just like she just straight up leaves. Like she doesn't even stay to go talk to anyone. She's just like, I give up, I'm leaving, kind of thing. But then that's when we get the scene on the bus, which was like a whole other like just what the
Well,
fuck?
the funny thing is, like during those scenes, like when she was going into town, when riding her bike to town, and then also when she gets on the bus, I love how, and actually even the first scene before the home invasion, they do these aerial shots where it's like it
Mhm.
almost seems like it's like the aliens looking down on them because you hear the
Yeah,
sounds and it's looking down, kind of painting slowly over it, and even that just creeped me out. But then there was following the bus, like okay, something's going to happen to the bus. It's like no, something's going to happen in the bus.
well, yeah, because like at that point, like we have not seen. I don't think at that point we had seen anyone.
We hadn't seen one possessed. We did see through those overhead shots that there was every other house had tons of those little landing marks
Yeah, a
on the
little
yard,
like circle
but we
thing.
don't know what that they've been possessed or
And then
whatever.
there
Yeah,
was that one. She tried to run to that one house, and that one house looked like it was you know fucked up,
trash. Yeah,
or like
yeah.
hers was, but no people, kind of thing. And so like initially we think because she's sitting on the bus and she's like trying to stay hidden and stuff, and this guy's walking up to her like, oh, this guy's gonna be a dick and like say something to her. It's like, all right, well, at least we're gonna get some context. And we're like, oh no, this guy's gonna fuck her up. And then you see his throat, and you're like, oh, this guy's body snatchered basically to a point. And then like you're wondering, is like, is everyone on the bus that way? He's like, no, because then like there's a
Because
girl,
the
and then
bus
she attacks,
drivers, yeah,
yeah, she attacks another girl, and the bus driver's not a part of it, and all this kind of stuff. And then you realize like, oh crap, how many people are actually infected or taken over, or however the verbiage you want to use for that. And then you just realize once again, like you realize that oh, she lives in a small town, her house is out out there, so she's alone. So okay, crap, she needs some help. Then she goes into town, you're like, all right, well, everyone shuns her, so she really doesn't have any help here. But
hence
there's
the
got to be
term "No one will
some.
save you." There's your title.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, someone will help her. And then you realize, oh crap, people are already being taken. You are fucked. Because there is no one that's gonna help you, hence the title, like you said. And it gets to the point where like it's her drive. Like you get to a point where with this character where just like, why do you keep fighting? Like and that's because she's just a fighter to a point, because it gets to the point where it's like no one's gonna help her. Every time she tries to do something, it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah,
You know,
because she goes home and the first thing she does, obviously, well, she finds out the one thing had crawled out of its mouth and whatever. But then she tries to like start getting ready for battle. She tries to I love that look when she tries to barricade the door of the couch and then realizes, oh wait, there's all this empty space above it.
well, yeah, it's like that alien's tall enough to just step over
Anything could just
that.
climb over it. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It's like no one. I love that she put the chair in the net, but she struggled to get out of it. Like that more. I was like, okay, come on. It's a couch. It's not
Yeah.
like a freaking fence. Like, come on. But that's when we get with the introduction to the little like big hand, little body like alien. And at first, like, because like you're like, oh, is it like a baby, like a adorable? And it's like, and it's like, oh shit, no. And and it's one of those things where it's just like it's like she doesn't know whether to attack it or not because it is little. Because there's so many times where she like stops and she just watches it. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Run, run, or grab. Like, why aren't you grabbing a knife from the kitchen? Like, never once does she grab a knife. She basically like stumbles upon weapons like a video game almost. But like the
She
whole
grabbed her box
time,
cutter when she started arming up.
she grabbed that box cutter.
Yeah.
But and then she eventually gets away from the little one, and then we get the big daddy long legs signal alien, and you're just like, oh, good luck, But then we get to see the power of like the tractor beam.
Well, that's the thing. It actually kind of confused me because the first time you see the beam really is shoots in through the house and it like crushes that pan and squishes it against the wall. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but then other times it's like a tractor beam that's pulling things up. So I'm like, well, what's the beam doing here?
Well, yeah, because
Like when I had the guy, I thought it was gonna like tear him in half or something, but it didn't. It actually just pulled him up. I'm like, I don't know what's what, but
well, because like at first that's what I thought too. Is like because he bends all the way back, and I was like, oh, he's dead. And I kept expecting whatever was in his throat was gonna come out because like, oh shit, he fucked up the vessel, so he's gonna move. I was like, oh no, he's fine. He's cool. He just got forced, down like that. Yeah. But yeah, like even the force of the tractor beam, like that thing was like a weapon on its own to a point, which was actually really well done. And then of course you have the big, the daddy long legs alien, and even how she handled that one, I thought was really well done. But I like that there were certain moments where she did get caught and captured. You didn't give her this like Ellen Ripley kind of superpower where it's like she just knows how to beat them all. It's like no, because you get that she gets that thing where she's back in the house and she's being chased by this one, which even though she's not really being chased, it was so mesmerized by like her cards and all the pictures because it was like studying her. It wasn't until she tried to come from behind that it like threw her through that wall. And that was when he was like, all right, fine. I wasn't going to do anything with you, but you started shit. Like, fuck around, find out right now kind of thing. And then you get the red, like, force field thing that shoots her up in the air and up in the ceiling. And then you get the thing, I guess, what, a bug? It's like, I don't know what you want to call it, and then she wakes up and you're like, oh, was it all a dream? Which we all know better. Yeah, we watch these movies. And it's one of those things where it's like,
well, isn't this during this scene is when she first that's when we get our dialogue.
That's when we get the dialogue because she wakes up and she keeps hearing voices. For us, dialogue is just murmur. And she goes downstairs and she sees Maud, who we find out is her best friend. And that's where she says, I'm sorry, Maud, I'm sorry, which is the only dialogue in the movie. And then even there, she realizes this isn't real, which at that point, we still don't know why yet, but we understand to a point. So, I mean, and then she full on sticks her whole freaking hand in her mouth, which I was like, damn, okay. And then yanks that fucker out. And then she's back, where she's at and, back into fight mode kind of thing. And then we eventually find out that when I guess her and Maud were kids, they got into a fight and Maud pushed her down and she grabbed a rock and swung and hit her in the head and effectively killed her. Which, okay. I mean, I've been in small towns. I've wrestled in small towns. I don't think, yes, she technically killed Maud. But the whole town just straight up just...
Well, that's my thing is, I mean, and yes, it was probably, it was the sheriff and his wife. It was their child. So they may have been like, the family of the town. So maybe everybody is on their side and they all see her as this evil person who killed, the darling daughter of the town. But even then, it was a kid thing. And at this point, it's what, like 11 years earlier or something like that?
Something.
Because I figure she's like probably like 23 and this happened when they were like 12 or something. Because I was going by the tombstones. I think think she was 12 when it happened.
Yeah, I didn't. It was one of those things where it's like I didn't pay attention closely enough to it at first, and then I was like, oh, when I go back, I'm gonna have to pay attention to this again.
Yeah, I think
But
it was.
yeah,
I think because it said that Maud was 2000, 2012. Her mother's tombstone, I believe, had her dying in 2022. So I think this is 2023. So this is like 11 years later. And it's like, I mean, she's
there's
not going
got
to
to
be
be
a popular
some
person in town, but
people.
is she going to be like the town villain?
Yeah, there's got to be at least like at least 5 people that are maybe like, hey, Bryn, what's up? You know, it might not be the people she wants to be friends with, but you're telling me that everyone in that town is so pristine that they're like, fuck that woman. You know, it's like, like there's gotta every town is gonna have some people that are just like, hey, she was a kid. Like,
Right.
not necessarily cut her some slack, but you know what? Like maybe we don't treat her like she's, the freaking devil, kind of thing. Like it was one of those things where it's just like the what happened, yes, was bad. Because I was talking about what drunk driver, they died in a car accident kind of thing. Granted, this one's kind of worse because she straight up just hit her, but it was one hit. It wasn't like she hit her and then kept going wham, wham, wham. That one, I'm like, okay, you went, dark red and you basically just bashed your face in. I can understand that, but it's like, no, it was a one hit. Clearly, it was a mistake. But the whole town's like, no, fuck you. I didn't necessarily buy that, but once again, you don't spend enough time with the town or the people in the town to really have that affect the movie because you're just so straight up getting attacked. Because whether it's the storms that are grabbing people or anything, and then you got all the people that are just like already infected, like looking up at the sky. But we get to that effective point where she does get grabbed and shot up. And they were basically like all studying her and they go into her brain. And that's when we get the story of what happened between her and Maud. And that's the part where, like I said, that's when the movie starts to go into the I'm confused situation. Cause they basically decide, I guess, oh, she's been punished enough. So drop her ass back down to earth. But then they drop her back down, but then she's got a double. But none of the other townspeople have a double either. So that was the part that was like, so wait, what's
Well,
her
unless like the townsperson that we're seeing with the thing in his neck is a double being controlled by that thing. That's the only thing I can think of.
maybe, yeah.
It's
And they
not the
all
original person possessed. It's a double they've created
potentially,
that's controlled by the thing.
which at that point is like they dropped her down, and then the double tried to kill her, and then they basically, she killed it, and so I guess they were like, oh well, she can live, and that's the part that really didn't make a lot of sense
But
because
she got stabbed pretty bad too. So I'm
exactly
surprised
she
she
got
lived at all.
stabbed at least twice because I heard there was initial stab, and then you heard her go
And there's a second one. Yeah.
again. And so between like the bodily injuries that she's accrued over the last 2 nights, and then that, she's already concussed. It was like, well, she's gonna die. And then it's like, oh, I guess she's not gonna die. And then all of a sudden the movie is like, she's the only human left, and everyone else is these body snatcher bodies. And I guess they decide, oh, she's suffered enough, so let's have her happy ending. But it's
Yeah.
like,
So let's go ahead and get into this ending.
yeah, so go ahead.
So
Because you actually listened or read what the director said. I have not done that, so please take over.
it doesn't give you a whole lot more insight, honestly. But the thing is, like, yeah, so they returned her back down to earth or whatever, and then she wakes up, and honestly, I'm like, okay, this is some kind of another dream sequence or something that she's inside of, like she had been earlier. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and then it's not until it keeps going for a minute or two, you're like, no, this is reality now. So I'm
She's
like,
back.
why is she alive? I'm like, did the aliens leave? What happened? Because some of these movies, like, War of the World or something, where they just suddenly die or suddenly leave. I'm like, is that what this is going to be? But then once she gets to town and everyone's all accepting of her, and you start seeing the things that throw it, you realize they're aliens. So I'm like, okay, so what it seems to be is that she is still a regular human. They never possessed her or whatever. Everyone else is aliens. But they've just accepted her to live in their community as
Because
she
it's like
is.
they know
And
she's not they know she's not the doppelganger because
right.
they can sense that she's a regular,
And
but they
she's
just are
happy
like,
with it because
okay,
she gets to basically live as a part of the community that has shunned her for her entire life, or for the
yeah.
last 11 years. She gets to live there and be a part of it and live her happy world that she just pictured in her models earlier at home. But now she gets to be there. So I understand her perspective. Like, okay, this is a good thing. I will accept this new reality. In which case, why'd you fight it from the beginning, honestly? But I mean, she didn't know that's where it was going.
Yeah.
But I don't understand from the aliens' point of view. It's like,
Because yeah, it does the
why
same thing
keep her
again
alive?
where
Why
it
she's not
scans.
special? Just do away with her, and the rest of you can still live there as having taken over Earth.
Yeah,
That's the
because it
part I
does
don't
it does that
understand.
thing where it scans back up and you see all the flying saucers. Looks like they're in all different towns and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's just like, is she the only human that they accepted, or are there others? Because I mean, yes, she's lived a pretty sad, traumatic life, but there are other people who probably have suffered way worse than her. Or is these people fought and they survived, so as long as they're accepting like she is, they can stay. Like the movie just ends. And that's where it's like I said, it's very much like an Outer Limits or Twilight Zone type ending, because she's just like, I'm happy and dancing and I'm okay with it all, and the end.
Yeah, and
And it's like,
I don't usually do this, but this is the one time where I finished a movie, sat there for a minute going, okay. And then I Googled, no one will save you ending explained, looking for answers. I'm like, can someone else? Because I don't think I get it. I think I missed something. I didn't miss anything. That's all we were meant to know. And then, like I said, I found the director's comments in an article where he was talking about it, and he basically said the same thing, where it's like, she's decided to accept this world because she can live and have this idyllic town where people don't shun her anymore. She can be a part of it, and the aliens have accepted her. He doesn't explain why they would, so there's no more to it. But so that's the ending we get, and I'm kind of like, it's it seems weird for the sake of being weird, but I mean, it's like, I guess it makes sense for her character, even if it doesn't make sense for the aliens character. So it's like, I don't hate the ending. It's clearly not the ending I would have chosen, but I'm like,
mm,
and like we said in our non-spoiler part, it's like, it doesn't make me love the other 95% of the movie any less. It's just like, it
it
didn't
was
quite stick the landing.
it's almost like how we were talking about with the townspeople. It's like there had to have been at least like 5 to 10 people who understood what she was going through, and it would just cut her some slack or maybe befriend her a little bit.
Or
And
did
it's
no
almost
one
like
else it was no one else, was she the only person the entire time who was able to fight back?
I guess, because it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like anyone else fought back. But it's also one of those things where it's like, we were talking about how the town doesn't have anyone, but it's like it's the aliens that accepted her, because it's like when they got into her house and they were reading all the letters and stuff, that it's almost like they felt the compassion that we figured that at least there would have been a handful of people in that town who would have, and it was the aliens who did it. And maybe it was also the compassion that she clearly feels sorrow and regret for what happened. She didn't mean it. We this woman's been punished for the past 11, 12 years because of this. She's a fighter. She's not willing to die. Maybe we just let her go. Which, once again, would have really loved some dialogue for that part. Just for the reasoning, because it's one of those things where they're like, you know what, we've tried to kill her like 8 times already. Just fuck it. Just let her. It's like when you keep trying to kill a fly in the house and you just keep missing. You're like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm just stay out of my way, and you can live. Except she's interacting with him. She's dancing and stuff and all this kind of stuff. So it's like I said, it's a very Twilight Zone-esque end, which I don't hate that, because we don't get a lot of movies like that. Usually it's an M. Night Shyamalan type movie that does something like that, but it's done in such a stupid ass way, which this didn't do the thing where it like tipped us off, like, oh, they're going to do this. They're just like, nope, this is what happens. The end. Bye. And it's like, okay, it's like, I don't love it. I don't hate it. It didn't like, it's not something that's going to end up on our like most disappointing, like you done fucked up Aaron award that we do at the end of the year. Like it's not to the point where it's like, oh my God, you ruined this movie. It's just, oh, okay. All right. It is, I mean, you're the director, it's your story, you
It
choose.
really, like I said at the top of the show, it really, my thought was just, that was a choice,
It wasn't the choice I would have picked. But you know what? The 95% of the rest of the film was flipping awesome. And that's one thing too. It's like this whole weekend, I was like, I want to like get my girlfriend to watch it, but then I was like, how's she gonna take the ending? I was like, because that's the thing. I was like, I don't want her to watch this and then just totally trash the movie at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, don't deprive her of the rest of the movie just because she doesn't like the ending, though.
I know. Well, it was one of those things where I was like, I didn't really find time to like, it was a busy weekend, so I didn't get time to really say, hey, let's watch a movie. And the time we did get to watch a movie, we watched, Turtles, because they had already watched Nimona, which, like I said, I brought up on my review earlier this week that you all should be watching Nimona on Netflix because it's freaking great. And so it was like Nimona or Turtles, and we, she had just seen Nimona, so we watched Turtles, and I was like, I would have liked to have watched this again, but I was like, all right, we can watch Turtles. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say
honestly,
no.
if I knew we were gonna do a review of this, I would have rewatched this again because I've been wanting to rewatch it anyway. I'm probably gonna watch it again this weekend because I really like this movie. But
Yeah, I'm sure I'll find time to watch it again here, at least
but
in
I
the
do
next
wish I had
month.
a second time to watch it before this, but because I really did enjoy this movie quite a bit.
Anything else you'd like to add before we end this?
Nothing.
Gotcha. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this non-spoiler and spoiler review. If you guys did, hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, get to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Also, out right now, I have a review for Amazon Prime's Cassandro. It's one of my more anticipated films of the year since we did the fall preview. Also, like I just mentioned, I did a massive review roundup here last week for 5 movies that I got to watch this past week because I was on vacation. Luckily, sadly, vacation ends tonight, and then I'm back to work. Wah, wah. But we got those reviews out. We'll be back again later this week for the Weekly Crusaders, where Brian and I will be talking about 2 movies that came out during this week in movie history. Coming out this week, movie-wise, trying to think of what else comes
Saw
out.
X and the Creator.
Did you eventually? What's that?
Saw X and the Creator are the 2 big ones this week.
That's right. Which I depending on availability, if I see Creator, I'll have a review for it. I'm not seeing Saw X because I haven't seen the last 3 Saws or Jigsaw for that matter. Did you eventually go see Expendables 4?
I did not. I was ready to, and I heard nothing but bad things about it, so I was like, ugh.
I've heard it's the worst one yet. And
I
was
have,
like,
and I rewatched 3 last night, and I'm like, I didn't hate that one, but the things I liked about it aren't in this one, like Antonio and Wesley and Mel Gibson and stuff. So it's like, I don't know if I'm going to watch this in the theater. Probably not at this point.
yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna wait for it to eventually pop up on whatever streaming service it'll be on, and then I'll probably just watch all 4 at boom, 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 and do it that way. But yeah, so we'll be back later this week for the Weekly Crusaders. We hope you, like I said, go watch this movie, check it out. Which at this point, we just spoiled the whole fucking film, so you guys should only be here if you already watched it. But
Go
anyway,
watch it again, turn off all the lights, bring new people with you, and don't spoil it for them.
yeah, like do the thing that we like to do, like when Brian likes to do when he has me watch something like Terrifier 2, where he's just gonna sit there and watch me watch this movie. Except don't do that where like they're watching it and they turn and you're just like, because that's just fucking creepy. And the movie's already creepy enough as it is. But yeah, until next time, we are the Movie Crusaders. In case we don't see you, go watch the movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.